Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will dedicate the whole episode on the ongoing conflicts, either external or internal. There are a lot of conflicts which are actually adding insult to injury to the political upheaval and turbulence happening these days in Sudan. So this episode will cover the conflicts and the effect of the conflicts on the present situation and the upheaval of the political in the political arena. So that's why I'm happy and glad to host our friend Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor. Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor is known to be one of the scholars in the peace processes, in the conflicts, and he is now and he was the director of the Peace Institute in the University of Khartoum. Now he is the dean of the research, scientific research in the University of Khartoum also, and he has also good experience abroad, good connections with different institutions working on the same field. So welcome, Dr. Manzoor Abdullah.
Thank you, Omar. It's good to be here.
I'm happy to host you in this important episode, because we will definitely cover a lot of the sticky issues, and when conflicts come to a certain area or country where already the situation is not stable, it's fragile, this will definitely add to the gravity of the whole situation. Yeah. So let us start, Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor, let us start by the conflict, which it's an old conflict. Maybe you will tell us about it, the eastern borders with Ethiopia. What they call it, the triangle. This is Al-Fashaga area, as known to be very fertile and very good for agriculture, and maybe the Ethiopians, although they know that it is Sudanese, but they worked and they cultivated this land for quite a long time, and the Osid regime did not pay attention to the east. It was concentrating in its operations on the west, therefore, and so they completely neglected the east. That is why the situation is worsened, and these people now, they still feel that as if it is something their own land, although history says that it is not there by international law and international agreements. Okay, let's tell us about the reasons why. First of all, the history of this area, why it's the area of conflict between Sudan and Ethiopia. Although Sudan and Ethiopia, the relation is okay, good at the level of the populations, two populations, but still this area is causing a lot of problems, adding to the problem of the Renaissance Dam. So what are the reasons for these skirmishes at the borders with the two armies, and why it happens these days in Sudan?
Well, thank you very much, Omar. This is indeed a very complex problem, and to understand it, we need to put it in the context of the Horn of Africa.
Okay.
And also within the context of the IGAD countries. Now, if you look at these countries, they have been in conflicts for a very long time. Some of these countries have been in conflict since the 70s and the 80s. Sudan has been at war with itself for a very long time. Ethiopia has been at wars with itself since 1974 until 1990. Somalia has been stateless since 1990. Eritrea has been through a lot of problems. It fought a disastrous war in 1998-2000 with Ethiopia. Uganda has problems, Kenya has problems. So all these countries have a lot of problems. And Al-Fashaga problem, of course, this is something that developed recently, although it goes back to the 70s actually, the issue of borders between Sudan and Ethiopia. And I think during the regime of Jafar Numeri, there were some agreements with the Ethiopians to deal with this issue. But in the 90s, and specifically after the failed attempt of assassinating President Mubarak of Egypt, the Ethiopian took advantage and started to encroach. At a time when Sudan was busy again at war with itself in the South Sudan, because the army was pulled in 1995-96 and it was redeployed in South Sudan. And the Ethiopian government started to encroach. The Ethiopian farmers started to occupy land. And in some respects, this is also a responsibility of the government, because some of the vast areas in Al-Fashaga were leased to rich merchants who have nothing to do with the area. They don't go there. They are called absentee landlords. And much of this land is quite, vast, is unused. So people started renting to the Ethiopians on an annual basis. And then the Ethiopians took advantage of this situation and they started to encroach. And I think some accounts show that the Ethiopians encroach more than 15 kilometers
inside the
Sudanese territory. And the former regime of Bashir didn't really take any credible step or measures to address this problem, because it was busy, as you rightly said, at war in South Sudan and in Darfur. And also, let's not forget the fact that by, turning a blind eye to the Fashaga problem, Bashir was trying to buy the support of Ethiopians vis-à-vis the ICC. Because Ethiopia was one of the countries that was opposed to the ICC. It supported Bashir. And some accounts will say that the regime didn't really want to raise this issue in an aggressive way, fearing that if that happens, then it might lose the support of Ethiopia. And this complicated the situation, And I am saying this as a matter of fact because I was coordinating a project on borderlands in the Horn of Africa, in countries that include Sudan, Ethiopia, and Uganda. We have students who did field work in the border areas. In Sudan and Ethiopia, we have Ethiopian students who did research on the other side, and I have two MA students who did their masters in the Al-Fashaga. And they went there, they sat with the farmers, they had conversation with them, and the stories these farmers tell, they're really very sad stories, because they say that over more than 20 years they are unable to farm their lands, and these lands are theirs. And if or when they farm them, the Ethiopians come and loot their harvest, at the time of harvest. They chase out the farmers and they take their harvest. So the stories people tell were really very sad. And one thing that I need to stress is also the fact that even during the past regime, or the former regime, there were some shy attempts to address this issue through putting border marks. And every time the Ethiopian delegations, they try to dissipate the matter and they create, some problems that would delay the process of putting the marks until the former regime was deposed. And then, for reasons that we may agree with or disagree with, the transitional government of Sudan decided to take military measures to chase out some of these obviously encroaching Ethiopian farmers. Now, one of the things that were also quite strange was that the Ethiopian government has always been saying that what was happening was that there are some militias or bandits, or they call them shifta, who attack the Sudanese farmers. The Ethiopian government does not attack farmers. But to me, this is something that is unbelievable, because as a government, you should be responsible. Since you know who are the ones who attack the Sudanese farmers. You should do something about it. Or else, if you are unable to do that, the Sudanese government would do that. And that's what the Sudanese government did. For some people, the action by the Sudanese government is unjustified because they say that there are negotiations that are going on. But to me, these negotiations have been going on forever, and nothing tangible came out of that. Now, one point you mentioned, which is quite true, that culturally, the Sudanese and Ethiopians are very well connected. They have very good relations. But politically, you know, the regimes in the two countries have always been, you know, living in tension, except for very few years. When, for instance, during Bashir's regime, especially during the last years of the regime, there was a very good rapprochement between Sudan and Ethiopia under the leadership of the late Meles Zenawi. And, you know, people started to feel that strategically these countries are now starting to cooperate so that relationship would be, you know, more than normalized. But then the problem of Fashaga continued to be a thorn.
Thorn in the side. But I want to remember, just trying to have your idea about now the Ethiopians. I hear their statements denouncing this allegation that they're true. First, they said the Ethiopian army is almost fully occupied on different fronts, especially in the northeast. Where were their Tigray Liberation Front took siege of most of the towns. They are busy. Number two, they say that the Fesag area, this area, is sharing the borders with Sudan, with Tigray area. This Fesag, is it true? What do you think of this?
Well, for the most part, the Fashaga area shares border with Amhara.
Amhara.
Yes, there is only a small place that was shared with the Tigray.
The Tigray, okay.
And I'm not sure whether the Tigray are now in control of that area or not. Because before the war in Tigray, the borders are all controlled by the Amhara. And one of the actually reasons of the war in Tigray was that the Tigrayans contest that part of their land was taken and given to the Amhara. So that part, I'm not sure whether it's still is occupied by the Amhara or whether the Tigrayans have taken it back. But in all cases, I saw the statement of the Ethiopian army chief, which he categorically denies that they waged any attack or war. I'm not sure whether this is true or not. But the very fact that many Sudanese soldiers and officers were killed shows clearly that there was an engagement.
So engagement, not only militia.
No.
No. Maybe heavy artillery or
absolutely,
something.
Absolutely.
So, of course, I agree because if the whole army cannot be occupied in one area or 2-3 areas in Ethiopia and leave the other area, because this will create a problem to them. Anyhow, so Professor Manzoor, by this new conflict between Sudan and Ethiopia, already there were two other Ethiopia affairs, the conflict of the Renaissance Dam, the Grand Ethiopian Dam. This is still not resolved. This problem between the three countries, especially Sudan, is not yet resolved. Now this Fashaga area is another also the second problem. The third is the demarcation, demarking the borders. From history, as far as I know, since 1902, the agreement made by Menelik II and the British government and Sudanese government, at that time it was under the British colonization, everybody is saying that the borders, the Fashaga is entirely Sudanese land. No dispute about that. What do you think?
No, that is true. You know, there were two Ethiopian prime ministers, Meles Zenawi and Haile Mariam Desalegn. They acknowledge that Al-Fashaga is a Sudanese land. There's no question about that.
No question about that.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is that within the Ethiopian government, of course, Ethiopia is made up of ethnic, you know, groups. You have the Amhara, you have the Tigrayans, you have the Oromo, you have the Afar, and others. The Amhara, they don't recognize that Fashaga is Sudanese. And they even said that they don't recognize the agreement of 1902. And I think due to the internal political issues in Ethiopia, you get this kind of positions that are contradictory. And I think that all this has to be seen also in the perspective of the internal crisis in Ethiopia. And this goes both to the Renaissance Dam and to the Fashaga area. Ethiopia is now going through a very difficult time.
Yes.
You know, war is going on. The capital might fall any time. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia left office and now he is leading the army, you know, in the fight against the coalition of the Tigrayans and Oromo. And the whole issue of the Renaissance Dam is now put aside.
Put aside.
Because the fate of the country is unknown.
Yeah.
So until this issue of the internal war in Ethiopia is settled, I don't know how and when, I don't think there will be any room for talking about the Renaissance Dam. Now what happened in Al-Fashaga, we could also read it as part of the internal dynamics in Ethiopia. If this is something that's done by the Ethiopian army, this could mean that the Ethiopian government tried to, you know, dissuade attention from its internal problems into something else. If it was done by the Amhara militias, it serves the same purpose. Because
it's still the responsibility of the government.
of course, but the government is now in Ethiopia is dominated by the Amhara.
Yeah.
So it's their perspective that is dominant. Maybe they also try to pull Sudan into the conflict so that they would say, you see, Sudan is now supporting the Tigrayans. And actually the Ethiopian government said blatantly that Sudan and Egypt are involved in what's going on in Ethiopia. You know. And you know, this is very well known to us in the region. When a country goes into problems, it always tries to blame somebody. You know, and this is precisely what is happening in Ethiopia.
So whatever goes on in this conflict, as you said, the Renaissance Dam, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, were definitely will not stop. I think it will be continuing, and the feeling, the first, second, the third feeling. Let us assume that this war protracted for some time, and the Ethiopians are building, completing the
No, I don't think they would be in a position to complete anything.
No.
You know, in this situation, no, they can't.
Everything will stop.
Everything would be halted. Even the work in the Renaissance Dam, I don't think there is any chance to continue working on it.
Because I think the area, the Benishangul area, also under threat.
Of course, it has problems.
It has
problems.
Security problems.
Absolutely, there are security problems. So, until the situation, the internal situation in Ethiopia is cleared, I don't think anything.
Nothing will.
I don't think so.
Happen.
No construction, and even negotiations. I don't think there will be any negotiation with the three countries, Ethiopia and Egypt and Sudan.
So, as if you are saying that, okay, this is good, this issue of the Renaissance Dam, this I definitely agree with you, that it will be put aside for a while. Even the Ethiopians cannot put a brick on it or add anything at this time.
Yeah.
But okay, well, let us go back to the fighting at the border, which happened last week or 10 days ago between, as if you are saying that because the Ethiopians are categorically denying not only the head of the army, also the spokeswoman or spokesperson of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, she could categorically deny this allegation, and they said we don't have time and they don't have army to do this fighting at the border at this time. So to what extent now, if they did not specify or say that Sudan and Egypt are supporting the Tigray, they did not say it openly and clearly, but do you still believe that it is something done by the militia, the government has nothing to do, or still the government is responsible, even if it was perpetrated by the militia?
Well, I think there are militias in Ethiopia.
Yes.
There's no question about it, because not only Shifta, every ethnic group has its own army. The Oromo have their army, the Tigrayans have their army, the Amhara have their armies. You know, so there is a possibility that this is something that was done by the militia. But still, it is a responsibility of the de facto government to do something about that. And because if you take this type of argument to its logical conclusion, you may say that, well, because this is something done by the militia, the Sudanese government should not respond. But this
does not absolve the government of its responsibility, even to say that's exactly what I'm saying when you say there is a third party doing the killing here. Okay, there is a third party, not killing the peaceful demonstrators.
Right.
Okay, that's okay, but still
it is your responsibility.
Responsibility to find out who is doing this killing. So this Ethiopian also, even they cannot say that Ethiopia either did not perpetrate, did not do that, and if the militia did it, they should say this is the militia and they should stop it.
Exactly.
That is what
actually this has been my argument all the time. Even if we buy the argument that the havoc done in Al-Fashaga has always been done by the militias, it is the responsibility of the Sudan government to stop that. Very simple.
Okay, Professor Mandur, why let us go back again to the lines, the border lines. Most of the borders of Sudan are not fully clearly put on the ground, and it's the only area we have. We have two more areas than Al-Fashaga occupied Sudanese lands. One is Halab and Shalatin, Sudanese land, and the other is Abyei. Still the conflict, although the International Court of Justice ruled some arbitration, still the area is a hot area, and that's why the African Union is putting or the United Nations, they are putting this. Most of them are Ethiopians, by the way. And the Sudanese government asked the Ethiopians to leave. Right? Anyhow.
No, it's quite complicated, and I could see your argument. It's true. We have, and by the way, we have 5 contested areas along the border with South Sudan, in addition to Abyei.
In addition to Abyei.
So that is also an issue. Of course, Halab and Shalatin are well known. The good thing about Halab and Shalatin is that the government, I think for the past 20-something year, has been renewing its letter to the UN.
To the United Nations.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing. The Egyptians are ducking, saying that this is, we don't. They refuse all sorts of initiative to resolve it. But I think at one point something will have to be done about it. I don't think it will be left to continue forever like that.
Okay, can the African Union play any role?
I don't think so. There is a slogan that's African solutions for African problems, but I don't believe in this slogan, and we have seen it in a number of issues. The African Union was hopeless, and is hopeless with regard to what's happening in Ethiopia. Headquarters in Ethiopia, yet they couldn't do anything. To help in the crisis of Tigray. And now I see some reports to the effect that the African Union is trying to relocate its personnel from Ethiopia. So these regional bodies, they have potential, but they also have serious problems. And if you take one of the regional economic communities like the IGAD, for instance, IGAD is one of the most useless, I have to say this, regional economic communities, because all the IGAD countries have problems among themselves. Ethiopia has problems with Sudan, Eritrea has problems with everybody, Kenya has problems with. So, in this situation, they cannot be constructive. They cannot really contribute positively to solving regional problems. And this is also applies to a large extent to the African Union. It really has little capacity and political will, to address these problems. And for this, I don't see any role that the AU could play, especially when it comes to Halab.
Yeah, so the African Union is not a political. I agree with you, because the African Union did not contribute much in solving any conflict in Africa itself, because they don't have, I think, they don't have the resolve, they don't have the power like the United Nations. They have under Chapter 7, they can mobilize troops to like what they did in Darfur. In Darfur, they mobilized troops. Maybe they work jointly, but I think the African Union always waits or looks for the intervention of the United Nations. Then it moves because they don't have the tools, as you said. They don't have
They don't have the political will.
the political will.
Yeah, that's actually that is a key problem within the African Union, and I think also the issues between the countries impact negatively on the ability of the African Union to contribute positively to solving problems. Now look at the EU, for example. The EU, because there are no issues with its countries, even if there are issues that are very minor.
Minor, yes.
They stand out as one bloc, and they agree on all the major issues. This is not the case with the African Union, because there are a lot of problems. The African Union cannot even sort an easy issue like movement of its citizens.
Yeah.
They couldn't even agree on this.
So we don't have to expect much of the
No.
of African Union
I don't think so.
to intervene or to solve this problem, because it actually did very little on the issue of the GERD, the Renaissance Dam.
Nothing.
It did very little. Yeah. This could have been, although the United Nations
Referred,
referred the whole
yeah.
subject to the African Union, but the African Union did not do enough.
That is right.
The only document which was signed by, which they call it the DOP, the Declaration of Principles, which is now governing the relation between the three countries, was signed by the three
presidents.
Yeah. Because at that time, the three, they had the will and they have the power in their countries, full power. It was Desalegn,
Sisi and Bashir.
and Bashir.
Yeah.
So that's why the African Union, which we don't have to expect much from the African Union because of the conflicts between the countries, the African countries themselves. Or why do you think the African Union is unable to solve most of the big problems in Africa, not like the European Union?
Well, basically, I will go again to the point I made. It's because of the problems among the African countries themselves. Now you have three major African countries: Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan.
Yes.
And ironically, these were the countries that established the African Union.
The African Union, yes.
They have issues among themselves. Now, if there is any decision regarding one of these countries, it will be obstructed.
Yeah.
And Ethiopia almost has a veto because it's where the African Union is headquartered.
Yes.
So the African Union has always been cautious when it comes to issues related to Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, yes.
And that is a problem. That is one thing. But I don't think the location is as important as the political problems.
Political problems
within the countries. You see, within and between countries. Now, every one of these countries, of course, Egypt is a bit politically stable, so to speak. But other countries, Sudan has serious internal problems. Ethiopia has very serious internal problems. All these other countries in the Horn of Africa, they have very serious internal problems. They are at war with themselves, Yeah. And that's why it's really difficult to look at them as contributors to solving regional problems.
So okay, my last question on this issue of the Ethiopian borders, Sudan and the Fashaka area. Why Sudan did not claim or did not ask the African Union or the United Nations? It was till now, it's something being resolved locally between the two, only the two armies. The Sudanese army engaged in fighting for one day, and it was renewed yesterday, I think 2 days ago or something like this. But till now, this one did not, the Sudan government did not apply or ask the help or ask the intervention of the African Union or the United Nations.
Well, I think
at this stage not yet, or Sudan is not sure who is doing it. Why?
No, I think Sudan has much in its plate, as they say. There are a lot of problems that involve the African Union and the United Nations. And I think as far as Fashaka is concerned, the Sudanese government may have the position that, well, this is Sudanese land. It's ours. We don't really need to tell people that this is our land. Maybe that is a conviction why they are not really taking this, and maybe also they are still having the intention that probably even with these wars that took place and the fighting that took place between Ethiopia and Sudan over Fashaga, still there are possibilities of negotiated settlement. And if it's, but the Sudan's position is that we don't have the intention to block the Ethiopians from benefiting from the land. But they have to acknowledge that this is a Sudanese land in the first place. And then we could see, you know, the models through which the Ethiopian farmers along the border can make use of the land. And actually this was put on the table at some point, and the UAE was trying to broker something, but the Sudanese rejected the proposal that came from the UAE. But I think if the Ethiopians acknowledge that Al-Fashaga is Sudanese, if the border marks were put, then I don't think there is any reason for Sudan not to allow Ethiopians to benefit from the land, because that border area, one of the problems that actually enticed the Ethiopian farmers to encroach was that there is no sizable population.
Sudanese population?
Yeah, there are quite few Sudanese along the border, and there is vast, land. And this is one of the reasons why. And let us not forget the fact that that border area.
The inlet of the refugees to Sudan?
No, the total population of Gaddafi state is like 1.7 million, while the number of Ethiopians in that borderland is 36 million.
Oh, yeah.
You see the demographic, dimension, and you have this, big population on the other side. They have shortage of land. They live in highlands where agriculture or farming is not really possible. And just, down there, you have vast land areas, very fertile, rain-fed. What do you expect?
Rain-fed, yes. Yeah. They would just come, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is. But I think with an amicable political settlement, this can be beneficial to
both countries.
Yeah, to both countries.
Yes, they can put it on lease or for Ethiopian farmers.
Absolutely.
Like what are the some people are proposing that they lease land to the Egyptians because they have the same problem. They have the growing population and they have shrinking or diminishing lands.
That's right.
They need, that's why they can invite, say, some people, they talk about 10 million Egyptians, they come and cultivate, and on basis which is beneficial
to both sides.
To both sides.
Yeah.
So that you think that what happened 2-3 times in Fashaga is not very alarming, because it did not till now reach this level of war.
No.
You cannot call it a war between two countries.
No.
Because both countries, even the Sudanese and leaders, and they said we don't have problem with each other. We don't have problem. The Ethiopian side, they said they have very good relations with Sudan.
Which
so
is true.
And Sudanese leaders, they say also we don't intend to go in war. So the problem is not a big issue, I think.
No, that's true. That's true. I think they will resolve it at some point through negotiations. I expect this to happen.
This can be happy. Okay. Now let us move down to the internal. We have some internal important issues. What is really alarming is the renewal of the threat of the bigger groups or tribes. They threatened again that within 2-3 days, actually on the 5th maybe, after 3 days, they will close
the port,
the port and the main road, the lifeline from Port Sudan to Khartoum, which is lifeline to the whole country.
Right.
So, what can you tell us about this? Why is this? What is the problem? Why are they raising the same issue? Although it appears that they want some after 25th of October, they should be happy. That's why they opened the port. Now, why now it's renewed? What is their claim?
Those who were behind blocking the port and the road uh, that started in September, I think they have one thing that they have been calling for, was that they want the Eastern Track to be cancelled from the UP peace agreement. That is their bottom line. And they say anything that's less than this is not acceptable for us. Now, this is a very complex political situation, and the Eastern Track cannot be cancelled, as simple as that, because it also involves other categories in the Eastern Sudan.
Other groups.
Absolutely. You cannot simply cross it out thinking that would be fine.
You mean the track of the East?
Yes.
That is one of the demands of Nadir Tirika and his Bija is the full cancellation of this track.
Absolutely.
So you are saying that it's not
that is not possible.
That's not possible.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all, unless you bring all the people in Eastern Sudan. And this is something I have been hammering on for a very long time. Why don't you convene a big conference that brings all the stakeholders in Eastern Sudan and talk about this, instead of ducking behind a demand of simply cancelling this? Because if you cancel it, there would be war in Eastern Sudan, because there are those who support the track. This is one. Two, yes, there are threats by Tariq and his people that they will block the road and they will shut down the port. But there are also a statement from other groups saying that they are going to fight them.
Yeah,
and this is something that we have warned against for a very long time. That continuing in this way is going to create serious problems in the East, to create war, among the different constituents. This is at the political level. Practically, I don't think blocking the port and the road is going to bring anything to Tariq and his people. We have seen this. They blocked it before, and they affected their own people.
For 1 month.
For 1 month, people suffered a lot, and even by their own logic, to restore this damage is going to take a very long time. Now there are a lot of ships that decide not to come through Port Sudan, and I hear that some companies filed a lawsuit because they want to be compensated for the losses they incurred as a result of blocking the road and the port. I think those who are calling for blocking the road and the port, they should really think of other ways and means, because this is going to be harmful to everybody.
To them more than the
to them more than anybody else.
Because as you say, most of the people there, they subsist on
the port.
On the port.
Exactly.
The port, all activities are in Port Sudan.
Yeah.
Yes, you are right.
They are based on the port, on the activities on the port.
So if it stops.
But the economic actually side of it might be manageable. But the problem is that this is going to create tensions and problems within the different components of the East. And we have already seen this. We saw statements.
2-3 days ago, I saw the statement.
By people and components saying that anyone who tries to block this time are going to fight them.
This is a big fight. Yes, I read it.
Yeah.
And not only this, Professor, I also remind you of a very, very important issue of people. If they close it for quite a long time, the last time when they closed it for 1 month, people started seeking outsourcing other ports, like Egypt, and where Egypt, like Al-Ain Al-Hamra, is by far advanced than Port Sudan. Yes. They have, I hear some people that they say the clearing time is very short. And
the cost is lower.
Covered. And the road, they come to Khartoum. So many people, they started and they said they will continue importing their raw material or goods through this. So if it happens again, people and the Egyptians will be more than happy.
Absolutely. This is beneficial for them.
They are building ports. They have big mines. They are building ports like Al-Ain Al-Hamra. This is a very big port, and they are thinking of expanding it. So if they start, these people, they start blocking shutting down the port and blocking the road, this, apart from being very detrimental to the people who subsist on this, their own people, people, they will at least, let us say, 20% of the goods coming from, used to come from Portugal, it came through
Yeah,
Egypt.
that's right.
It's a big
That's
loss.
true. It's loss. It's an economic loss. It's a social problem, and it's a political problem. You know, within the, I think Eastern Sudan is going to lose a lot. You know, from these actions that to me are really not justified and not strategic at all.
So what you are specialized in this kind
Well,
of conflict. What will be the solution?
my call has always been, why don't you bring together the different stakeholders in Eastern Sudan for a consultative conference or meeting and debate this issue to come out with something that is acceptable for everybody
Without cancelling the track?
without cancelling the track.
But they
Now,
can-
if people sat down and arrived to the conclusion that we can cancel the track, why not?
Yeah, by consensus, yes, it will,
Yes,
it will
yes,
be acceptable.
by consensus.
Yes.
But it cannot be imposed
by decree.
by anybody.
Yeah.
This cannot happen, you know.
So you are saying that the only way out of this is to convene as early as possible, inclusive and conclusive, comprehensive, very short,
Yeah.
short, in a short period, and deliberations very short that they can reach between the different groups.
Yeah.
Because if you firefighting treatments, it will not work.
No. I don't think a political decision or a admin decision just to cancel the track is not going to solve the problem. Actually, it will complicate the problem.
Actually, you are right. I agree with you, because when the Nazir Tirik one was tantalized, actually tried to seduce him by this seat in the Sovereignty Council. People, I think they short-sighted. They thought that this will solve the whole problem, and because the problem is not only Tirik. He doesn't want a seat.
No, it's not.
He doesn't want a seat.
It's not.
Otherwise, he'll lose his popularity.
It's not. I don't think Tariq would accept we put in the
member
Sovereign
in the-
Council, because this does not address the problem.
Yes.
And I am also one of, despite my disagreement with the approach Tariq and people are having, I am one of the people who kept saying that this is not a problem of Tariq as a person. This is a problem of Eastern Sudan. It has to be looked that way.
Yes.
And Tariq also need to understand this. It's not about him and the group of people who are around him. This is a problem of everybody in Eastern Sudan. They have to be on board, they have to be consulted, and they have to contribute in solving the problem. Because the East doesn't belong to one group. It belongs to all the people who are living in that part of the country. And I think this is a wise approach to follow, you know, instead of aligning. Of course, what happened in Juba was wrong, because it wasn't a result of a consensus in Eastern Sudan, and this was the responsibility of the negotiators who signed the track in the first place, because they should have put in their mind that we need to be inclusive, we need to bring everybody on board, even if this implies delay, you know,
Yeah.
in signing the agreement. But that didn't happen. They bear the responsibility, but the approach that is now being followed by Tariq and his people is not constructive. I don't think it's going to...
So it is very, very sad and unfortunate, Professor. People here in Sudan, they used to be very sluggish. They used to be very slow. Now these people, since the 25th of October, after the changes made by General Burhan, Tariq and the East, they removed, they said temporarily. This is on condition that to give time for the new setup of the governance. Now it's almost to the end. People are always slow. They take decisions after the damage happens. This is very bad, because as 3, 4, 5 days, these people, they will close it. They will go for it. Maybe if the other group, the Amarar, if they keep their promises that they will fight, this due to this slow procedure and the slow, the difficulty in taking action, this might trigger in the East a big problem.
Well, I agree with you, and one of our problems since independence was that the mindset of those who sit in Khartoum is quite distorted, and I look at those who make noise as people who are looking for positions.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this is also the mentality when it comes to the problem of Eastern Sudan. They have been thinking that if we give Tariq a position, he will keep quiet. And it doesn't work that way. This is a serious problem that requires unconventional ways of dealing with it. Address the issues, and then, whoever comes to the position, that is a minor, issue. But then that is our fate, that's our problem, that our leaders in the center, they just think that if you give people, a snack, then they would just keep quiet.
This is very bad. This is, in the conflict, because the first world, they come to the conclusion that the policy, the brinkmanship, the end policies are always, they backfire.
Yeah.
When you leave something till it comes to the end, the brink of falling down, they intervene when sometimes it will be too late.
Precisely.
It will be very too late.
Precisely. And as you rightly noted, since the events of October 25th, and the problem of Eastern Sudan was there before these events, they should have done something about it.
Yes.
Nothing has happened with regard to the problem of Eastern Sudan. I saw that a committee was formed, headed by the vice chairman of the Sovereign Council, but I don't think that's going to be constructive. I don't think it's going to bring anything positive.
It will not bring anything positive.
I don't think so.
But what can you tell us about the slowness? Why people they don't take things seriously at the onset of raising it? These people, this Tariq and this problem is not something new. Why the governing people, they left it till this end? They gave an ultimatum of 1 month. Now 1 month is finished. That's why they are trying to fulfill what they said. That on the Sunday they will close it. Why people always go to the brink of the situations when it comes to a dangerous situation like this?
Well, unfortunately, this was one of the very bad habits of all our political leaders since independence.
Yes.
They don't take things seriously, and as I said, and this is something I have to stress, is that they think that those who raise demands do that because they want positions at the center. And if they are given those positions, then those problems disappear. And this is not the case. This has been repeated not only vis-à-vis some places, but all over. We have seen the agreements that were signed. Even in Eastern Sudan, the agreement that was signed in 2006 in Eritrea, it provides some leaders from Eastern Sudan with positions, and that was that.
Yeah.
5 years later, it appears that only 20% of the agreement was implemented. You see?
Yeah, yeah.
So the mentality is that
You have to change the mentality. You have to be very active and reactive.
there's no way out.
Okay, Professor, my last question in this episode, this very interesting episode, it went very fast, but my last question in about 4 minutes, we have only 4 minutes, about the Juba agreement. Juba agreement, which is now there is a conflict with going on. Maybe that is why it's delaying the formation of the cabinet, the council of ministers. Because the cabinet now, as far as we know that, it should be now all people agreed to that from technocrats, non-partisan, not affiliated to any party. Okay. Now, people of the Revolutionary Front and the signatories of Juba, they are saying that no, they are not meant by technocrats. So this is another big problem. Can we tell us how can we go about it?
This is actually quite complicated, and it's really ironic that the Juba signatories say that the technocratic government doesn't concern them because they came through the agreement. This is very strange because they have been calling for the technocratic government. Yes. when they participated in the declaration in the Friendship Hall and later on in the sit-in in front of the palace.
Yes.
So you cannot dismantle a government in which you were part and then you try to sneak when the same prime minister that was chased away came back.
Yes.
So I really don't know how this problem is going to be solved. But to me, there are persons or individuals in the Juba agreement that are quite problematic.
Problematic.
If I was the prime minister, I would tell them, yes, we have the agreement, you have the right to be part of these different structures, but X and Y will not be accepted.
Yes.
You know, nominate someone else. And I have to be very blunt. If I were Hamdok, I wouldn't accept Jibril and Minawi, because I don't think it would be possible for Hamdok to cooperate with these people.
Yeah.
They undermine his government, and they cannot impose themselves in the coming cabinet. This is my personal.
Yeah. But this is the idea of the technocrats. They mean these political, now they are
Are they
political
technocrats?
leaders. No.
They are not.
They are not. They are not technocrats. They are political leaders. They are strong leaders. When they come to the cabinet, to Hamdok, they will have another leverage
Absolutely.
over Hamdok himself, because they have the agreement and they have the proofs. They have the truth.
Well, you see, the best scenario is that these people are either put in the Sovereign Council or in the interim legislative council. They should go there, and they should, like anyone else, prepare themselves for elections.
Yeah.
But of course, the Juba agreement.
Sovereign Council.
Yeah, the Sovereign Council is the place where they could be, or in the assembly. But of course, the Juba agreement, I think it has provisions that, you know, allows these people to, you know, to go around these kind of things. It's very complicated. I just wish Hamdok good luck.
It's very difficult for him to go about it.
It is not easy.
It is not. It's not an easy job.
It's not easy. But he should stick to the principle of having technocratic cabinet members. By all means.
This will create another big problem for him to go about it, because these people, they are adamant, and they say that this is Juba agreement has nothing to do with the freedom of forces and change. These groups who are now, they are hostile. Actually, there is no incubator now in the government. No incubator except the new incubator, because the original, the first FFC are now taken to the streets.
That's right.
Against Hamdok and against Burhan, against everybody.
That's right.
Because they have their own.
We have a very complicated political situation. You know?
Yes.
And
They're very complicated.
And I really, because for a cabinet to be effective, it needs to have political support from the different actors. And now, this doesn't seem to be the case. Of course, we have to wait and see in the coming few days, but it's not an easy situation at all.
So it's not an easy. I agree with you. It's not an easy, because now the Hamdok is working without any without any foot, no base.
That's right.
Freedom, no political incubator. So it's very difficult and very hard. Okay, Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor, we have enjoyed 1 hour with you in this muddy and sticky issues, internally and externally and at the borders. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last 1 hour, and we enjoyed having our Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor. He is a peace man, peace scholar. He had very good connection in different parts of the world. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us, and hope to see you next week. Bye.